Benjamin Boyce. I have a very antsy feeling in my gut, so I'm projecting myself onto the airwaves, seeing what happens if I can stabilize myself, probably against the zones of somebody's attention. As sometimes the attention of others can help focus my own attention on something, but until other people show up, I don't even know what I'm paying attention to. So, um, had a flash of information. Wait, what? I had a flash of inspiration regarding a possible musical that I could write. And I don't know, I started singing it in the shower. Do you guys do that? Is that a thing for people from last century that were born in? Do people sing in the shower anymore? What do the young kids do in the shower? I mean, I'm not asking that as a personal. Don't take that the wrong way. I'm just saying it's like an activity that they do, like singing for the older generations. Do young people sing anymore? Or do they just chant? I don't know. Maybe it's just they're desperately misinterpreted or misrepresented in major media outlets right now. I wonder what the songwriters are doing. Are they just dropping fat beats amidst the lather and the various poos, like the shampoo and the condition poos? I don't know, all those little squirty bottles that are held in there. I know about soap and shampoo. That's about all I know. And singing. So I started singing a song the other day, and it turned into a song about a character in my documentary. He's like a central character, one who I'm trying to focus on so that I can finish this documentary up, and trying to get the right key in order to assemble a bunch of They Dance Now. Jamie says They Dance Now. Thanks for tuning in, Jamie, and giving us clues as into what the young people do. I started writing a song about a guy with a bow tie being submitting to a struggle session from students, and he kind of like enjoying that in a weird sadistic manner. So wow, you guys just tuned in. So you guys don't have anything going on either. You feeling antsy too? Let's be antsy together. Jamie, okay, so one thing we know now is that one of my settings is no longer on, so I'm going to have to manually unclick the things if I put them on. Heimdall's Gate asked me a question. Uno, dos, tres, it's on. Did you ever see a pump rock the microphone? Like that there boy, we still stay street. Outcast romping up and down the street like a black Cadillac in the shower. Oh, okay. So they rap nowadays. Heimdall, I always took you for somebody who would be clued in to the goings on of cleansing young folk, but you know, because I'm disconnected from them. Rapping is fine to do in the shower. I mean, I like the acoustics. Oh, by the way, the ultimate reason why I pressed play or stream on this thing is because I have a new audio setup, and I really need to know if it works or not. It looks like it's blowing out on my end, but I can't really tell until this is all over. So hopefully, I'm going to go up into settings really quick and make sure that we are streaming in high quality, not to waste anybody's time or anything like that. I mean, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? I guess I should start reading something. I did have a song. I don't know if I can sing it out loud. Okay. High quality video mode, high quality audio mode. Okay. Okay. It seems like we're good. So, oh, geez. Oh, man. Oh, no. Kamala Harris. Oh, no, guys. What's happening on the political stage? Okay, this is my thoughts of it. I'm really sickened by federal level politics. This stuff is so intense, and especially on Twitter. Twitter's not a good place to actually like see what's going on. You see a lot of reactions, and people are really in their camps right now about this stuff. So it's really kind of nauseation station for me to watch that. But I think that there's going to be a surge of interest into Joe Biden's campaign following Kamala Harris, and then that'll kind of shake out, and then we'll see what happens. So I don't know what the reaction to that will be in the long term, but I do think that on a normal person level, somebody who's not hyper online, somebody who's not hyper invested in politics. Somebody has better things to do, like surviving in this world. I think that what's going to happen is that they're going to see somebody who was a hard-nosed prosecutor, and they're going to see these protests, and they're going to see, okay, well, this person's going to be tough on crime and put an end to this nonsense that's going on in these cities, which makes me think, and I don't ascribe to this, but this is what makes me think. It's like that it was kind of, I don't want to say this, but like the Democratic leaders of these cities kind of fomented these riots, right? By kind of like being pretty soft on the rioters and, fomenting, their, going along with the protests and then allowing kind of the riots to go. And then the media is not really showing. It seems to me that the media is being very selective about showing the extent of the riots, and then overhyping any sort of response from something that could be attributed to Trump. So it seems like they were trying to get him to be fascist, and now they're showing, and now that he's not responded, they can show him to be weak. And so now they have a candidate to come in, Camilla, who's going to be hard on crime, right? And then Joe Biden's going to die. And then we're going to have Camilla as president. Or he's going to resign. I don't think he's going to get through it. I don't think that that's going to work. But I'm just thinking about the effect. So I don't really have anybody that I'm going for. I'm not going to say that I'm in this person's. I'm not going to support or endorse. That's the word, right? Because I'm a public figure now. I endorse things. That's what I do. Such as Pfreum, the IPA for black-clad individuals on a NASA sunscape. I endorse IPAs. So I don't want to endorse like Trump or Camilla. It's not really Biden. It's Camilla, at least right now until things die out. Then maybe he'll like come forth. But I don't see him as a leader. I don't see Biden as a leader. Every time I watch him, I'm like, what are you really seriously? This is who you guys are going to foist upon me? So Camilla's going to be more energetic. And I don't really know much about her. I know she didn't do too well in the primaries. So, but I do endorse the different effects that they're going to have. And like I've said, I think that the problems that I see with regards to the advancement of a certain ideology through our government, I don't know what you guys want to call it. Critical race theory, postmodernism, intersectionality, this weird grievance study things, all the stuff that I've been talking about, which is a broad umbrella of stuff that I think is really destructive to authentic human relationships. It's going to be implemented into our government, and it will be implemented under Trump, and it will be implemented under the Camilla Biden ticket. But the thing is that the proponents of it under Trump will overplay their hand constantly, and they will kind of put pressure on this ideology, like what happened at the Evergreen, and the ideology will constantly expose itself because it'll be put under this pressure of urgent change that needs to happen, because Trump really triggers the justice fighting of the proponents of this critical theory stuff. So I think the effect of Trump will be better at exposing this stuff and ridding it from our society, or speeding up like a fever does the growth of that particular virus, and then the eradication of it, or just the eradication of the entire body politic as we know it. I don't know. So, but I think that I have a problem thinking that Camilla Biden, whoever it is that's actually going to be controlling things under their regime, is going to allow this stuff to really be implemented, and we're all going to go through training, and then the tech companies will take it as a mandate to go forward with the suppression of speech and the kind of the boosting of the speech of certain people with the right ideas and the right identities, and the suppression of people with the wrong ideas, the wrong identities. So from my point of view, which is very narrow, I don't know anything about the economy. I don't know anything about like international relationships. I don't know anything about, what's happening on the federal level with regards to all the different arms of government or the corruption of all that stuff. I don't know anything. I do know this one little tiny sliver of ideology and how it manifests itself within I guess, institutions that are charged or charge themselves with, solving oppression in some way, and also this ideology within the bounds of certain strains of activism around gender and sex, and what all that stuff means. So I just worry about the stuff that I'm studying, like really cementing itself in our culture under Biden. So that's my main worry right now. So I was in the shower and I was like, how does it go? I posted on my wall. I am emphatically problematic. I've skeletons in my attic, in my closet. You'd rightly posit there's a bigotry or two. I'm a supremacist with a bow tie. No, not the kind that wears white robes and burns crosses. No, I expect the worst from you. So go ahead, this college, take over, and the knowledge we sought to here provide you. Take a dump on it and lead us through a struggle session. Teach your daddy a lesson about how racist he has been for bending over just for thee. So that's apparently from the Complete Evergreen Musical. I have a couple other tunes going on. One about the Day of Absence, which is cool. I don't have the music for it, but I do have some of the lyrics. There's some wordplay. We present you with the absence of the white. We present you with the absence of the white folk on the campus, so that people with some color on their skin can feel at home. We cannot afford to be a place ignoring every student's race, for race is the best basis by which everyone is known. We've collected the statistics and decolonized the physics. Now up is down and big is small, and the minority can rise. Above their subjugation, breaking from marginalization, now whites can understand at last what it's like to a word that rhymes with rise that means oppressed. For race is not infrequently the key to how society defines you and reminds you that you're privileged or oppressed. And then I have a song that I want to call Crickets. It's about white silence, and that'll be a cool one. And I want to do one called Community Love. I think I had a tune for it. Community love, and they're all like swirling around like dervishes, spray painting everything. Fuck the police. Aqab, we should have a there's got to be like a really offensive like wordplay between ACAB and Allahu Akbar, which would just like really drive everybody nuts, like pushing the button of wrongthink there. Anyways, you guys are really understanding more about what Kamala is than I am. Gagamba says, Kamala was a great first lady for 8 years and a wonderful wife of my friend and boss, Stedman. I don't know how offensive that is supposed to be. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen on the level of community love. And Twitter's just been really depressing me this week. So I've just been like tooling around and working on my audio setup and kind of taking a little bit of a break from politics and doing interviews. I got interviewed twice this week. I'm getting better at them, which is fun to do. It's fun to be interviewed because then I can see how I am as an interview and compare that to how other people are as an interview, and then try to figure out how to be the proper interviewee. It's always different. It's always interesting. Everybody's got a podcast right now. I want you guys to raise your hand if you have a podcast. If not, you should start one. Why not? Community love. I'm really wasting everybody's time in this live stream. I might read a poem or a little bit of my woke Bible, but I don't remember where I stopped off in the woke Bible. I don't know if I read the story of the 5 sons. Maxwell Isaiah says, Benjamin, you're a treasure and one of the few that makes me feel not so alone during all this craziness. Thank you, Maxwell. Sorry I gave you that accent. I don't know where that came from, but your palm tree is tickling me. Lulu says I have a good voice. It's not my voice. Actually, my voice is mediocre. It's this audio setup. If it's working right, but I can't listen to it till later. Where's my woke Bible? Let's read some of this. So this is a draft. What happens is that God is named Z, and Z creates the Garden of Discourse, and he tells Adam and Eve, or the subject and the other, that they can talk of everything in the world and bring every object in the world into the realm of discourse, but they can never talk about power. And this creature this entity called the Dismantler shows Eve that if she talks about power, then she can be just like Z and actually form order and hierarchy of her own. She does that. Adam's like, oh, this is pretty fun. They invent theory, and they clothe themselves in theory. And then Z's like, what the heck are you kids doing? And they're like, she made me do it. And then it made me do it. And then they get kicked out of the garden, right? Now the man forced upon his womb men his power. So Adam has power. The curse of Adam is that he will always be obsessed with power and implement power wherever he goes. And the power will always be in his shape. So he's always going to be creating patriarchy. And patriarchy is going to subject the world to man, but also make the world hate man. Because there's going to be this subjugation of the world into the subject of man. So he has power, and the woman is kind of cloven from the ability to interact with power or theory. She's always over wary with emotional labor now because she caused them to start talking about power. So she always has emotional labor, and that ends up like causing her to not be able to have agency without manipulating the man. So in order for her to have power, she has to manipulate the man's power. So that's just the hierarchy in this woke Bible, okay? Now the man forced upon the womb man his power. And with this, she labored until she produced 5 more subjects. Okay, now, I might get in trouble for this. This is from actually an ancient Javanese text. I might have already read this, but this is from an ancient Javanese text. So it might sound more racist than well, we're playing with racism at the same time, but this is symbolic. So just think of this symbolically. So the woman produced 5 more subjects: a black subject, a red subject, a yellow subject, a white subject, and a brown subject. These 5 subjects worked together to subject the world, and order flourished across all the objects of the world as they lifted these into discourse and subjected them to hierarchy. Then one day the white subject looked upon the work of his brothers and thought to himself, "We have ordered the world, but not yet ourselves." The white subject then took hierarchy and divided it into 5 parts, and convinced his brothers to partake of this discourse of discourses, like so. "Black brother, you are the strongest and most enduring among us, and thus you shall push us further and lift us higher with your strength. And while you are beneath and behind us, you are truly above and in front, for all that we build shall be based upon you." I think I already read this. "Red brother, you are the most energetic among us, and thus you shall empower us further and craft artifacts and cultures that lend color and zest to our works. You shall be neither high nor low, but somewhere in between. Yellow brother, you are the most intelligent among us, and thus you shall contrive more complex systems for us to subject the world with. And you too shall be neither high nor low, but somewhere in between. Brown brother, you are the most wise among us, and thus you shall craft systems of belief that we may rely upon when we are exhausted in our objectivity. And you too shall be neither high nor low, but somewhere in between." "And what of you?" asked the others of the white brother. "As for me, I am the most organized among us, and so I shall take charge of ordering our order, which we shall call civilization, and which will be ordered by civility. And listen, brothers, though it may seem I am highest, I am in fact subject to you all through my service Sorry, I mispronounced that. I am in fact subject to you all through my service. The 5 subjects agreed to try this ordering of their order and went forth and subjected the womb men to their power and created 5 castes to carry out this work. Now Z looked down upon the work of his subjects, and Z felt envy in Z's heart, for Z had never seen nor imagined such an ordering of the ordering of order. The dismantler overheard Z's envy and came unto Z and spoke to Z thus. The dismantler is the bad guy. Well, not really the bad guy. He's the serpent, whatever. Do you not see that this is good? Is this not what you have intended? Let us test this new order then, said Z to the dismantler, who slithered from Z's throne and into civilization. In civilization, the dismantler planted a seed, and this seed was called ambition. And the subjects all coveted this seed and sought it for their own. But the civility that held civilization together thwarted the subjects in their attempt to each claim their own ambition, and so they organized into parties, and each party vied with the other parties to manifest its own ambition within and through civilization. Let's make a little edit there. And through, maybe. This led to great unrest, and at a moment most tense, the dismantler caused all of their eyes to be opened on what they had been blind to, being the color of each subject. Each subject then felt pride at their own color, and the parties split further and further and further until civilization was reduced to a mass of individuals, and no one could agree with any other, for they were divided so by pride and by ambition. When the dismantler saw what was becoming of the men, it then went to the womb men, and reminded them of theory. And they gnashed their teeth and grew so enraged that their emotional labor fell from them, and they rose up against patriarchy and again began a discourse of their own. This discourse was called matriarchy, and it spread through civilization. And the men learned that though they were subjects in their own right, they had each become so through subjecting others. And each man laid down his pride and his ambition before each woman. And the woman wove these together into the discourse of matriarchy. And everyone was blessed, and ate and drank, and asked for consent before subjecting one another to their power. And the world became perfect and glorious. The end. Except that was not the end. For the men soon grew bored with their pride and their ambition, and thus they reclaimed these, and in so doing, ruined everything for the women. And so the story continues. I think I already read this. Oh well, you guys aren't saying that I did. This is the Woke Bible if you don't know what I'm talking about. The cycle of civilization and discord continued across the world, and the colors mixed and separated, time and time again. But then the pride and ambition of the subjects once more pushed them into a new project. For they saw that Z was above them, just as they were above the world. And yet Z was in pure discourse, and they were subject to objectivity, which forced them to try and to fail and to die and never be certain of their truths and never be sure their power would last. And so they came together and decided to create a heaven of their own, removed from lowly objectivity. With their combined forces, they began building a device which harnessed the elements, and that would be as though a city removed from the material world. Z looked down on them and saw that because of their shared objectivity, they were capable of leaving objects behind and then would no longer participate in Z's hierarchy and hold power to themselves. If you guys don't know, Z just wants power. That's why he created everything. Being removed from, okay, and so Z allowed a crack to come to be in the discourse of men. This crack at first split what is called science from what is called art, and then that crack split the sciences and the arts from one another, and soon enough each man was lost in his own discipline and removed from the others. Being removed from others like so created a new rift among men, for they were alienated from comprehending what the other was focusing on. And this caused them great anxiety, and so they devised rituals and beliefs which stood apart from objectivity, and which would allow them to have a shared discourse. This new discourse they called religion. The dismantler was overcome with glee at this, for it was for religion as though was a new world for it to sow discourse within. And so it went to the men charged with leading these rites and communicating these shared stories. The dismantler said to these men, "You know of the goodness these stories and rituals create, but do you know of their meaning? And why is this?" The men then began speaking amongst one another about this meaning. And arguments soon arose, and these arguments soon grew violent, for within religion was no objectivity by which to settle disputes, but only interpretation. These arguments broke into fights, and these fights broke into wars, and Z looked down and felt worry in Z's heart, for Z wished to save Z's subjects from themselves. But at this time, they could no longer hear Z, for they were too caught up in discourse, and had all but lost their connection to pure discourse, or to Z. But there was one subject among them who did not partake of these battles of interpretation. He was renowned as a he-man, for his dedication to the patriarchy was inviolable and without blemish. This is why they called him Abrohim. Abrohim looked upon the wars of interpretation and saw them to be the work of the dismantler. So he removed himself from civilization and brought 2 women with him, for he would not give up his power. Down into the desert they 3 went, and Abrohim sought to rid himself of all interpretation, unto the moment he could hear again the discourse that lies on the far side of meaning. In this discourse, Z came unto Abrohim and spoke thus to him, "I wish to give you a gift, the ability to choose." "To choose what?" Abrohim asked Z. "To choose," Z replied. Abrohim began wondering about this, and that wondering sent him back into his own head, removed from discourse. Abrohim wished to gain clarity again, and so he and the 2 women continued walking further from civilization. They departed the desert and entered the mountains, and at the very top of the mountains, the 2 women made complaint to Abrohim that his power must be accompanied by resources of some sort, and there was nothing here for any of them. "Where shall we go then?" Abrohim asked the woman. "Back to the desert, where it is warm," said Sahara, his first woman. "Down to the sea, where it is wet," said Cleona, the younger of the 2. Abrohim thought long about this and decided to return to civilization, for he knew that deciding on one of their suggestions would lead the woman to splitting his power between them. There's a word play in there that I need to fiddle around with to really make rich. Anyways, so basically Abrohim knows that if he agrees with one and not the other of the women, then his power is going to be used to argue against them, and it's going to be a power play. And then he'll get no rest, right? He needs clarity. So instead of deciding on one or the other, he decides to go back to civilization. Sodom was the first city that met their path. There the men had sought to make pride their ambition, and every day would walk the streets in gay regalia and queer attire. Abraham detested such colorful displays, and so sought out his nephew, Lot, who supposedly ran an inn there. There Lot was, at the far edge of Sodom, and he invited Abraham into his home and gave resources to the woman and asked Abraham how he fared. "Z has offered me the ability to choose," Abraham told his nephew. Lot asked, "To choose what?" "That is just a thing," said Abraham in a hushed tone. "I believe Z intends to take choosing away from us, his subjects." Lot's face drained of life at these words, for what was discourse without choice? What is will, if not free? And worse than either of these drab futures, what would happen to civilization if choice was stripped from it? Imagine the disaster. "If that is what is coming down the pipes," said Lot to his uncle, "we best be getting out of here. There's no telling what will happen to this city when all are subject to their desires." Just then there was a knock at the door. Lot went to open it, and there stood a stranger who asked to be invited in. Lot obliged, and the stranger came and sat across the room from Abraham. "Can it really be you?" asked Abraham of the stranger. "It is I, the dismantler," the stranger replied. "I don't want to do with thee. I want not to do with thee. I curse thee. Get thee gone," cried Abraham, his power on full display, such that the women smiled at one another and then returned to divvying up the resources that they'd been handed. "Now do not be so hasty," said the dismantler. "Sit down, please. I come to you on behalf of Z, and I only do so because I was in the neighborhood." "I do not trust you," Abraham replied. "As well you shouldn't," responded the dismantler. "But hear me out. You were right. The freedom of choice is about to be greatly reduced among men. Z wishes that they be more orderly in their disorder, and so he is sending them the gift of authority. But your authority will not be like theirs. Your authority will reside in discourse, whereas the rest of men will be subject to material power. They will be given kings and rules of law, and you will be given the rule of Logos, administered by Z alone, if, of course, you so choose." There was another knock on the door, and this time it was a loud banging. Sorry about that. "Let us in," many voices shouted at the other side of the door. Lot peeked out the window and said to his uncle, "A crowd has gathered. They know that the dismantler is here, and apparently they wish to dismantle him." The stranger looked at Abraham and said, "Once they have their way with me, all will descend into chaos, and then a new form of power will come to be within civilization. Take your woman, your nephew, and his woman, and all the resources you can gather and leave. Beyond civilization, you will find what has been chosen for you." Abraham summoned his deep resources of patriarchy, and with them bore down upon the words of the stranger. In them, the words, he knew there was truth, and so he instructed his nephew to round up the women and their resources, and together they departed Sodom, whilst the crowd rended the dismantler apart. Some ways from town, one of the oxen died, and perforce the resources it was pulling need be left behind. Lot's wife, Pillar, knew what lay in store for this company, a life of dereliction, and refused to budge from the heap of resources next to the dead ox. Lot pleaded with her to leave, but she was not having it, and so the company left her to be ransacked by the mob she could not hear coming for them then. Spindling out. It needs more work. I just need to tighten it up. There's a lot of things I'm arguing about the ways in which patriarchy is going to be split. There's a bigger arc about how hierarchy comes to be dismantled once the son of Z comes to the earth. So we have to set up for the son of Z. That's basically what we're setting up here. So we're doing a lot of groundwork for that. Oh yeah. So this is one of those relaxed afternoon reading things. Just a time of reading with one another, discussing worldwide events. And singing songs, considering ordeals. I have to figure out the incest story. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can't read any further because I'm still working on the incest story. The funny thing about Abraham is that he keeps on getting led to a choice where he has to choose between his two wives and what they want to do with his power. And he's really indecisive when it comes to divvying up his power. He needs consensus because he doesn't want to deal with discord, because he's trying to focus on something other than resources, right? That's the thing about why the women get power through resources, like, because they're put out of the realm of being able to conceptualize things, and that's the curse. And one of the things that happens is the working out of the different ways in which women rebel and figure out how to create discourses of their own, and how they kind of spin off in these different directions, while patriarchy goes down its dual paths of material power and then intellectual power, logos power. Abraham, he was a he-man. He's a patriarch. The Bible's built out of a lot of wordplay. All the names are just wordplay. This one guy, really cool guy. I mean, he did all the work. I just shared my resources with him. But Shaun Cammack, ShaunCammack, he actually wrote a very extensive master's, I guess thesis is the right one. It's not a dissertation. That's for doctorates, I believe. He wrote a very long paper. I think it's 100 pages or something like that, about the Evergreen State College. He transcribed all the footage and ran it through like some sort of funny machine. He even breaks down all the chants he went through, and he counted all the chants. This guy's insane. And he tells a really compelling story about how a certain sort of tribal behavior all kind of came to be. I think that you can find... I think he's allowing people to just download this, and he will be on my channel later this month, and we can talk about it. It'd be great because he's thinking about sociologically the Evergreen story, that is, as just a tribe, and how that tribe divvies up power, and how there's all these different signals that cause it to function. So it's really a fascinating thing. I'm going over to Safari right now so I can find his Twitter handle. If you guys want to see it, I'll put it in the chat. Shaun J. Cammack. So if you guys are interested in actually reading somebody who actually wrote about Evergreen, I'm about halfway through this, and I'm really impressed with the work he's done. There's a couple other people who I know of that are writing doctoral dissertations on this. It's pretty cool. So if you're interested in that, I think that you can find this by going to Twitter, and his username is Shaun J. Cammack, ShaunJCammack. So big shout out to him. I gave him my documents. What I'm going to have to do is go through and I have all these resources, screenshots and footage, and a whole bunch of public records, those PDFs and stuff that I have to go through and make sure that there's no personal information in, and then kind of figure out how to host that on some sort of GUI leaks website. So that's going to come down the pipes probably next winter, though, because I'm not in a rush to do that. It's a lot of footwork, but it'd be a good, nice little side project. Oh, Micro Kernel, thanks for the super chat. I'm fond of Abraham, so deeply fond. He should choose both of his wives and just tyrannize the one he disagrees with when there's discord. See, that's the thing. because then there's these two sons, and the ways that the women treat the sons as resources is this novel development of matriarchy. Because matriarchy, in my conception of the woke Bible of history, there's history and then there's heresy, right? And heresy is Heracy, right? And it's a play on the goddess Hera. I'll put that in chat. Heresy, right? So it's not her story, which is totally stupid and puerile. It's heresy, right? And heresy is forced to always go underground and always forced to go leewardly and passive aggressively. And the ways in which the matriarchy influences the entire woke Bible is like a whole realm of discourse that I've been training for, actually. So the woke Bible is kind of, on one level, it's just a joke. I'm making fun of, critical theory and stuff, but it's actually like the outgrowth of 20 years of actually pursuing, trying to write, like revise the Bible and update the Bible to, to modern mores, and to giving space and room for the feminine to actually work out in a biblical landscape. So I'm on one level, there's jokes, but on another level, it's actually like a real project for me. Because I don't think I can just pay attention to it otherwise. I'm not a satirist, I think. Hey, Abby from Twitter, how you doing? I'm doing okay. I'm emphatically problematic. I have skeletons in my attic, in my closet, you'd rightly posit. There's a bigotry or two. I'm a supremacist with a bow tie. No, not the kind that wears white robes and burns crosses. No, I expect the worst from you. Looking for one more thing to read while we're waiting for our time together to wrap up. Should I read stupid? I need a break from politic, guys. I need a break from the politic stuff. I will produce more politic. I have an interview. I did an interview yesterday. I have an interview with Chiara, who is the first detransitioned female that I spoke with. And I spoke with her, I think, in the winter of 2019. So it's been like a year and a half. And we're going to catch back up and we're going to check in. And then on Saturday, I have a dual interview, or I guess a conversation with two other people, Helena and Sasha. And it's been too long since I've had Sasha on, so I don't know what we're going to talk about. Helena wants to get into attractiveness and dealing with men's attention. One thing that I do have a problem with in the conception, or the stilted conception, of the male gaze, and I haven't done too much direct reading of it, but I've seen kind of the penumbra of the discourse around the male gaze and the way in which the male gaze, so-called, shapes the ways in which women are portrayed in male media, which I understand. There's a critique for that. But I don't think that the conversation's really fleshed out yet, because there's this whole thing about male attention. And one thing about being a male that's actually really important, and I neither want to be, I don't want to come off as, a red pill kind of guy, or some sort of dating trap kind of guy, or whatever those player guys are called. What are they called? Confidence men? Pickup artists. I don't mean this in a pickup artist-y way, but the way in which I myself overcame my friend zone-ness is to recognize that I don't need to gain anything from the friendship of a female. Like to really figure out how to not expect anything from the female. And this is just my personal development in being able to gain friends with females and having deep relationships with females. As a man, a heterosexual man, I should say, I had to kind of overcome my desire, my expectation, and then all that weird feeling stuff of attachment that is naturally kind of elicited in me in the motion towards becoming intimate with a female. So one thing I had to do was understand to kind of segregate my own emotions and allow them to play out on the side, and not to deny them. Like if I am attracted to a female, and I want that friendship, I want that attraction to lead into like a sustainable friendship, I can't just say I don't have any emotions, but the emotions are over here somewhere. They don't actually, color the discourse. But so that's one thing, self-control, but also the realization that male attention is very powerful, actually. The ways in which giving your attention to another person, I've noticed is actually I'm going to step away from the sex gender talk and just say, your attention is actually a very powerful force. And I realized that primarily through interacting with children on a playground as a preschool teacher. What they were feeding on the level of consciousness, right? So they were building their bodies out of food, right, and water, and they were building their knowledge of the world out of experience, but they're building their consciousness out of other consciousness. And attention is basically the sustenance, or I guess you can say the pap of, what it is to, develop your sense of self and develop your consciousness and really develop your understanding of yourself and other people as, people. And that stuff is formed out of attention. So being, in the preschool environment and just seeing how much the child needs attention, right? The whole, like, they're on a playground, look at me. They constantly need witnesses, right? They need witnesses if they do something that they think is novel, right? Like hanging, going down a bar, some sort of achievement. The achievement doesn't really count unless it is witnessed. But beyond just the witnessing of the achievement is that the ways in which you become a platformer, you platform the individual, the other individual, is actually incredibly, it's a passive form of power. And I do think that men have a particular gravitas of attention, right? That is kind of hinted at with the kind of bored, tired, probably voided concept of objectivity, right? Like the older feminist critique of men objectifying women. There is something about the way in which a man beholds that which he's looking at that really kind of isolates it from everything else and really concentrates on it. And you can see that in male typical sexuality is there's a drive to see an object or a drive to distill everything into an essence, right? And we take that and we run with it in every facet of our lives. And that's what I think technology is built out of, really isolating and concentrating, just really surrendering our desires in order to really focus on that object and really studying, right, what it is like with a particular very, strained and, I guess in both senses, strained of subjectivity, but kind of strained in its forcefulness, attention on the object. So that works with regards to, technology. It works with regards to the various different art forms and the various different ways of achieving mastery or greatness of things. It does come through the act of continually refining and applying your attention to what you're heeding, right? And one of the aspects of gaining confidence as an individual is to realize that you have a lot of power that's just passive in just the way that you attend to things, and what you behold actually gains reality through you. And a lot of what happens within discourse, let's say, by which I mean a lot of what happens through social media and media at large, but specifically social media, is that people's attention creates a reality, right? So somebody says a statement and it gets hundreds of thousands of likes. I think it was yesterday or the day before. This female with the blue check mark or white check mark, if you're in night mode, she wrote that don't call men, stop calling women females. It's derogatory, right? It's just this totally stupid statement. She said that you can't use the word female because it's derogatory. And it got like 137,000 likes. It got like hundreds of thousands of people agreeing with that statement that the word female is somehow derogatory. And people are like, well, what are you really talking about? And she, said, well, people don't call men males like they call females females or call women females. So she doesn't like being derogatorized, right? She doesn't like being objectified in some way or put down in some way or classified in some way, which is really fascinating to me. I want to go on a little bit of a tangent since we're just tangenting in the afternoon with Benjamin. Tangenting in the afternoon. What happened was that the Washington State Health Organization put out a tweet, an article to why they think you should wear masks, right? It was just this article about mask wearing. And the caption of the article was an Asian man. I'm sorry to use the race, but it kind of is important for this particular. I don't like the race, but this is where we're at. There's an Asian guy with the okay thing. He had a mask on, and then somebody who's joking said, I'm counting down the seconds until somebody says that you're using a symbol for white power and showing that health is about white power. And within like half an hour or an hour, the Washington Health Organization said, oh, we are so sorry to offend you. We did not know about that. We didn't mean to evoke that negative reaction or that negative association. So we have changed now the picture, and then there's like this other just like token diversity picture that they put up there. But the ways in which we can, in this completely made up realm of discourse, of Twitter, the internet, the ways in which associations really substantiate what we're talking about, the ways in which we are living in a more and more symbolical world that's created out of attention, all you have to do is poison that attention by associating that attention with something else, by repurposing the object. So we are dealing in a discourse, in a world, in a realm of pretended things that are made out of our attention that are constantly unstable. There's nothing that anchors these things into reality, right? It's all just meaning. It's all just positions within itself. And I think that the postmodern, that's the basic kind of postmodern premise. Like, this is where we're in. If you look at Trump's behavior, it really is postmodern. He attaches his attention to things. That thing becomes real, even though it's not really tied to what we call the truth, right? And the same thing happens in all these other discourses. And so what I think we need to do is really understand that our attention does have some sort of power. Our attention does create reality to a certain degree, and much more so in the virtual world. What we pay attention to, what we invest our belief in within the virtual world does have a certain amount of force because it can conglomerate with a bunch of other people, and then a bunch of people start believing in something. You have this really strong concrescence of belief in this thing, which basically becomes real insofar as people start to act that thing out in the streets or with one another, right? So it does have this effect in becoming real by affecting humans' behavior. It jumps out of this objective world, of this world of facts and technology and stuff like that, the world of rationality too. It jumps out of that and it just goes into this realm of pure attention. It zips around, it latches onto us, and then we start acting it out in the world. So, part of being confident is controlling your own emotions. Part of being like a mature individual is really controlling your own emotions and being able to, preserve your subjectivity, right? Preserve your the story of your life and that which is meaningful to you, and interact with objective reality insofar as you need to interact with objective reality in order to participate in systems of increasing complexity and increasing disaster too, because of the way in which previous person's attention has attached to the material world and extracted from it a whole bunch of potential power. I'm really thinking of that explosion in Beirut, which is, rest in peace the people who died there and all the people who were injured there, and just the negative impact is astounding, and I want to completely respect it. But just as a moment where an incredible amount of energy was released in a time where there's cell phones everywhere, right? The way that event happened and the way that it was captured so that we can pay attention to it is absolutely phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. From what I've read, that was the biggest non-nuclear explosion of the modern era, right? Or a man-made explosion. And you can just see the footage of it. I would suggest, if you're interested in just watching how that thing exploded, going to Reddit. One of the last places on Reddit worth going to, along with Political Compass means, is, shockwave porn and probably catastrophic failure. They have compilations of these things. But so what I'm trying to say is that there's we have to be really careful with our attention. We have to be very careful with what we believe in, because our belief does have consequences, right? And so part of becoming mature is really kind of respecting that there are parts of you that are mystical and fancy and subjective and full of feelings, but allowing those things to inform your life, right? Without controlling your life. And then also understanding that there is this objective reality that's filled with death and pain and power and resources, limited resources furthermore. And there's ways in which just living in that world and completely live in that world will actually kind of erode you in a way. And you don't necessarily belong in that world 24/7. You need to have some fun, whether it's a video game or Netflix TV series or something. You need something that is meaningful. So understanding that on the inside, but also understanding that the ways in which you attend to things are really a source of your own personal power. And in interpersonal relationships, as you mature into your adulthood, from just being kind of the squishy thing, center of the universe, into being something that can attend to things, is it's an overlooked source of power in human relationships. Just your ability to listen and developing that. And people have this thing about active listening. I don't know. There's probably all these theories in it that I'm just probably just recycling unwittingly. But, that's just a part of it. Oh, God. You guys are still talking about Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. I don't want to think about that right now. Bruh. All right. I'm just looking at chat and watching it like non sequitur chat style. I hope my audio is doing good. I'm trying out a new setup, and I hope that it's rich and delicious and that it allows me to do what I need to do. I figured out one major problem with the streaming platform, I think, where I was constantly having low audio, and I'd had to go in my rinky-dinky like headphone things instead of my nice microphone. This guy. So I think I figured that out. I read the manual. And what else is there to say? I'm emphatically problematic. I've skeletons in my attic, in my closet. You'd rightly posit there's a bigotry or two. I'm a supremacist with a bow tie. No, not the kind that wears white robes and burns crosses. No, I expect the worst from you. So go ahead, this college. Take over, and the knowledge we sought to hear provide you. Take a dump on it and lead us through a struggle session. Teach your daddy now a lesson about how racist he is for bending over just for the community love. I think I'm done. I gotta get the grill going. I hope you guys are eating. Oh, I'll talk about this. I already talked about it, but my cat Bijou she was cracking out about that stupid food with a bit of milk in it. It's called like Fancy Feast. She totally cracks out about it. And she demands it at 6 a.m. and at 5 p.m. She demands it. So yesterday morning, she's like, she's like going back and forth, back. So like I pick her up, I'm like, no, and she just like goes right in my nose, man, like right on my nose. She got me good too. She went in deep. Once it's no longer red, I think it'll disappear. I don't think she scarred me, but yeah. So what I've been singing all live stream is from the Complete Evergreen Musical. I do have one poem. It's just a perfect musical. I mean, all those characters, give me a break, man. Let me see if I can find that. Oh, where is it? Let me see. Maybe I'll end with this little poem. Oh, where is it? Okay. I think I've already read this in the fast, and this can't be a part of the actual musical because it is in fact what reckon, hey dude, it's a poem. It's like the epic poem evergreen story. So this is from the second day of protest. If you guys are up on my oeuvre, you can picture where this is. So tell me where this is. If anybody knows, this is the pop quiz for the complete evergreen story. Where did this occur? Naima Low, dressed to recline, and toting her service canine, stood before her seated colleagues and, backed by students, then bereaved her grievances. "This place is racist," she said to them. "My therapist agrees with me. I'm literally sick to death of evergreen." The students snapped, eyeing the cake, but before their snack 'twas more berating to be had. One student protester said, "Ain't this what y'all taught us? To change the world? That's what your website promised us." At this insight, more snapping filled the lecture hall. "Now follow us," the students bawled. The teachers stood and filed through the door as though that famed canoe presently'd been met by hard seas. Thus paddled they for equity toward Red Square, where once again Naima Low, lapdog in hand, her shirt proclaiming goal digger, which I'll not rhyme, because the N-word is not a thing I dare to speak, nor apply, however meekly, to a human. Naima Low, with scores of protesters in tow, confronted faculty with this: "I'm sick and tired of your shit. I'm literally about to die, and I demand that you comply with these students acting bravely. Go inside or get home with thee." Pinkly eclipsing, like morning fog, she raged at them. Her service dog nobly sniffed the air. Its calm mayhaps exuded soothing balm toward her heart. The live stream twitched as the protesters chanted this: "Go inside or get thee home," half them holding up their phones to vertically document their righteously historic moment. "Go inside or get home or home with thee," while elsewhere on a balcony. That's all I have. I think I wrote that at work one day. That's like 3 years old. I forgot I wrote that. I should finish that. I feel so bad. I don't like making fun of people, but they're so ridiculous. Oh. All right, guys. Colleen Wassner. Okay, so I'm going to scroll through the chat. We're going to wrap up. I'm going to scroll through the chat. Somebody wants me to get Colleen Wassner on sometime. I have to go into reading glasses mode. Sorry, I need to upgrade I lost a lot of eyesight this year. I'm getting old, guys. Thanks for the super chat, Miss Allison. Love the backdrop. It is almost in my backyard. I think that is from apod.nasa.gov. So I just downloaded it one day, so I can't remember what planet it's from, but it's might even just be a render because it's copyright Michael Go. I don't think NASA copyrights things. Crack for cats is not allowed in my home. Community love. You know, the problem with being a poet is that I've decided never to rhyme love because it was so stupid when I was a teenager and first trying to woo women with my objectivity or my objectingness, my objectification of them through the written word. And I decided to never rhyme fire and desire and just leave the word love out of it. You get through that. Like I was 14, so I figured that out by 15 to just like completely just discard that completely concept. But now I'm stuck with that term, so I have to figure out all the rhymes for love and all the clever rhymes for love. Community love. So that's something we're going to have to do. Joe is asking people to teach him a lesson anytime. I don't know what he's referring to. Flame Red Cat says, need a vocal booth for your beautiful singing. Uh-oh, I'm going to take you off because that's a very salacious image. Sorry for all the people at home there. I have like, I'll show you guys my stupid setup. Like I have like all this like cardboard everywhere. And then there's cardboard behind the green screen too. But then the green screen just kind of ends and then there's a bunch of space over there. So I have to figure out how to make a recording booth. But I spend so much time editing here that I don't want to have a separate thing. I'm so unprofessional. This is Benjamin Boyce. I'm running down my live stream right now. We're just checking in with the chat, scrolling through the chat. Turncoat Rider said, Manalula. I also agree that females can be used derogatorily. It depends on how it's being used, though. It's not derogatory all the time. Aren't you just talking about like any word? Any word can be derogatory. I could say battery acid. Probably in such a way that would hurt somebody's feelings. Trigger their trauma. Oh, okay. This is an interesting take. Okay, so there's nuance here. People are talking about female. Okay, so there's nuance. Maybe we can squeeze a little bit more talking time out of each other here. Tavildo says, the problem is that the male words don't emphasize the age of the subject as much as the female words. So is it derogatory to indicate that there are certain patterns of behavior within the female writ large, according to what station in life she's in? I think that age isn't necessarily something that we should back away from. I mean, in the discourse where every difference is derogatory or seen as derogatory, or everything is reduced into power and into an insult, then I can see why, it's all fraud. It's all fraud. You're completely screwed. If you're going to start to assign all this bigotry to all these words, that's why I kind of overreact when people tell me not to use the word cis when I'm obviously using it sarcastically. I don't use the word cis honestly. I think it's a ridiculous term, but I use it when it's playful. I'm not going to attach a negative stigma to the word cis because it's not worthy of being given that amount of integrity of being a slur. So you strip it of the slur. You say, that's a bunch of bullshit. I'm only going to use it to make fun of it. Anyways, so the word Karen is perfect. Perfect word for our time, for 2020. Karen is a trifecta of reverse bigotry, right? You got the whiteness in there that you're making fun of. You got the ageism you're making fun of. And then you got the female that you're making fun of. And all those things are open season now. So you're being racist, sexist, and ageist. Ageist still, though, I wouldn't necessarily put too much stock in ageism, though I understand, and this is the problem with it. If you really want to interact with why is it problematic, let's say, I'm sorry to use that word, but I'm trying to be a little sarcastic. Why is it problematic to indicate a woman's age? It's because whether we like it or not, the social value of a female changes according to age. But I think there's an argument to be made about a shifting frame of reference with regards to the female over time, right? Where her value on the market might be decreased, right, as something that men want, but that is a very small part of the woman. So if that didn't really matter anyways, or if that was not what we wanted to find women in anyways, then we really need to investigate, well, what are other forms of female power, and how do we articulate those in such a way that we can see them for what they are, and both respect and fear them, and give them the respect that they do, and see how they inform the fabric of society. And this is my whole argument about that I'll be unleashing in my woke Bible, is that there is a thread underneath history, right? Like I'm really rusty with this metaphor, but if you're weaving something, there's the knit and the pearl. Like the ways in which the fabric is constructed is that there's kind of like there's this underside and then there's this overside to a tapestry. And I think that with regards to apparent power, the female becomes very apparently power by means of her reproducibility, right? And her fetchedness on the level of just on the sightly level, and then regresses back into a position on actually supporting the fabric of the ways in which language happens, the ways in which morals are propagated among human beings. And I think that if you're going to problematize that and only look at that negatively, you're really undercutting the power of the matron, right? So when we mock the Karen, we're actually pointing out the Karen's power, right? And I think that there's a case to be made that certain forms of expression of misogyny are more about the fear of the woman and the woman's power over the man, and a way of compensating for that power by being derogatory towards the woman, by putting the woman down, is an attempt, a feeble, frail attempt for the man to escape the power. And I think that there's an undercurrent of misogyny that really does have to do with the ways in which a woman renders a man powerless, emotionally, sexually. She can really control a man. And the problem with gender discourse is that it's ruled by critics. It's ruled by criticism. It's ruled by one way of making it an activist thing, of only regarding it as a power play. And I think that that's really undercutting and ultimately under empowering the female, to really give young women the tools to understand that over time, the ways in which men will pay attention to you will change. And that's not about patriarchy. That's about nature, right? That's just about the way in which the trajectory of certain values shifts over time. So yes, the apparent value of a maiden decreases once she is given to rearing children, and then once she ages out of the ability to provide more children, her value shifts from an apparent value to something that is much more powerful, I would say, and much greater than that which is just merely desired. I feel like I'm traipsing on the edge of disaster here, but I really do think that having a more mature, positive, and thorough understanding of the development of men and women, desire and attention, and the ways in which women are utterly not understood, really not understood by men and by popular society, and how even female discourse hasn't begun to really, concretize just how influential and powerful to the fabric of civilization woman has been throughout time. That is my argument for a positive female version of history that I call heresy, and it will likely get me canceled. But it's already in the name, guys. Maybe you're not even supposed to talk about that, right? Because if you call it out, then we know all the tricks. I don't know. So I think I argue for just like, okay, understanding like the validity of criticisms, right? But pushing things a little bit far, because no single critic understands reality. No single idea or like critical thought really comprehends everything in a 360 degree. One, because of its tone being locked in the form of criticism or the form of activism, and doesn't even touch upon like the real feminist works that I've interacted with are novels, man. And I've said this before, it's that you don't really start to comprehend the power of the female until you get to the novel. And what, The Tale of Genji, and Bronte's sister, what's her name? Fassbender was in a movie. Jane Eyre. Man, that book is so powerful. Like, that book really helped me understand just how vast and powerful the female imagination is. And I don't think that we really understand that unless you go into the realm of art and you really, you just really tell the story, right? So criticism just writ large is never going to satisfy us, right? It's only about power because that's all it sees. It's like some pseudo-mathematic mechanical way of redistributing how attention functions and how value functions, which is all fine and good, but you don't really get understanding until you really merge with your subject, and you have to do that through art. You have to do that sensorially. I mean, come on. All that sensuality that's left out of criticism is just like horrendous. Where's the sensuality of that? Where's the sensuality of anti-racism as a workshop, right? Where's the sensuality? Where's the pleasure, right? It's not founded on pleasure. It's founded on, like, if you look at Robin DiAngelo, I mean, what does she look like? She looks like somebody who's starved for pleasure. Totally ascetic. It's an ascetic religion. It's a denial. It's a denial of love, right? And it's all from a history of, removing ourselves from phenomena in order to change phenomena to better suit our own conceptions of what fairness is, ergo what power is. And it doesn't really merge with experience. And therefore, it will never truly inspire human society. That's my hope, and that's my bet, that the madness at the heart of the theories that we're witnessing will really not be able to satisfy people and will eventually lead to its own undoing, and then will just become a laughing stock. I mean, it might take time and it might do a lot of damage before then, but it doesn't really claim. It doesn't really claim what we are. What's that line from Labyrinth? You have no power over me. Some days I wish I was Jennifer Connelly. Talk about a woman who's aged well. I'm sorry. I don't mean any offense by that. I'm just like stunningly beautiful. And she looks so similar over decades. It's very, very powerful. Very powerful female. Sorry, I know I'm not supposed to comment on women's looks, but I did. It's Jennifer Connelly, though. Come on. I mean, if I praise David Bowie, this is the weird thing about being in my position. I can't flirt with women anymore, so I end up flirting with men just to be flirty, right? I can't comment on the physical beauty of women anymore because it's creepy or whatever, and I don't mean it as a slight, but it's stainful. So I talk about how beautiful men are because it's more acceptable. Like, what? Oh, man. It's so queer to be normal nowadays. It's queer to be normal. I'm mouthing off with Benjamin. I really got to go get the grill on. Figure out what's going on. You guys have a great night. Thanks for checking out my chill live stream. I hope that I filled your ears with something tangible and discreet. And I hope that you go forth into the wide world with a renewed sense of, I want to say beatitude. Have I said beatitude yet, this live stream? A renewed sense of beatitude, and roam amidst the verdure at your pleasure. I will check in with you soon. Tomorrow, look for an interview with the lovely Chiara. And then this weekend, I will probably try to live stream with Sasha and Helena. And follow me on Twitter because my sentences are so cool. Take care. Bye.